We've all been there. You're on a tight deadline and someone sends you a flat graphic to work with. Well, thankfully, there are a couple of tools in Photoshop we can use to quickly separate those graphics for animation, with little need to actually rebuild the graphics. Now, if I look at this project, you can see I have one flattened layer, this background layer. If I turn the visibility off and on, well, I can't really do that because it's a flattened background layer. So let's double click on the word background and turn it into a layer, and then just toggle the visibility off and on. As you can see, it's just one flattened element. Now, I want to be able to animate this dark area and this lighter area as two separate elements. But in the process of doing this, what I also need to do is paint in the background. So we'll start by actually creating a selection of this upper dark area. To do that, I want to go ahead and go to my tool panel. Now, your tool panel may actually have one row of tools. Now, I like to work with two rows, so I'm just going to click the double arrows here. And I want to use this selection tool here. If you click and hold on this button, you may see the magic wand tool, but I want you to use the quick selection tool. Now, with the quick selection tool selected, I'm going to make sure I have my initial selection or new selection option selected, and then we'll make sure auto enhance is selected. So if I just click once in this dark area, notice it gives me a very small selection. But the power begins when you just click and drag. So notice as I drag, it's automatically selecting the darker area here. Now, I want to create a new selection just based on this dark area. So I need to create a duplicate of this background layer. So I'll go ahead and click on layer 0, drag it down to the new layer button, and that'll make a new layer. Then I can go down and add the layer mask button, which will save this selection over here as a mask. Now let's double click on the layer 0 copy, and we'll call this snow year. And then let's repeat the process for the white area here. With our quick selection tool selected, I can just click and drag and it'll easily create that selection. We'll create a duplicate of layer 0 by clicking and dragging to the new layer button, and then click on the quick mask button. So let's rename this calendar year. Now, if we toggle the visibility of each one of these layers on and off, notice the background still has those layers. So I need to fill in this background area. But before I do that, I might want to save off these numbers and this line because I think this area as a whole looks pretty darn good. Let me grab my rectangular marquee tool. I'll just click over here on the right and I'll drag over towards the left. Now I don't want to select all the way across the 0 there, so I'll just have it just go a little bit outside of 2010. And I really want to create a fine selection here. So what I'm going to do is press Command+ to zoom in, and then I'll use my arrow keys to move up until I have a little bit of this bottom line selected in addition to the numbers. Now, let's duplicate layer 0 one more time by clicking on layer 0 and dragging it down to the new layer button, then adding a layer mask, and then I want to go ahead and apply this mask to this third layer. So I'm going to click on this mask and drag it to the trash, and it'll ask me if I want to apply it before removing. When I say apply, if I toggle the visibility of my background layer off, you'll see that now I just have the dates and a little bit of that bottom line. So let's rename this years. Okay, so we'll rename that layer years. If I turn the layer above on, notice this is my calendar year, and just above that, I've got my snow year. And while we're looking at this, let's go ahead and apply these layer masks as well. I'll click and drag the mask for calendar year to the trash and click apply. I can do the same thing for the snow year. Just drag it to the trash and click apply. Okay. Now, if we toggle the visibility of the background layer off and on, you can see it's there, but if I turn all these other layers off, notice it's not solid, okay? I need to fill in this background as though these areas never existed. So to do that, I'm going to hold down the Command key on the Mac or Control on Windows, and I'll click on the thumbnail for snow year. If you add Shift to holding Control or Command, and then click on the thumbnail for the calendar year, that'll go ahead and load that selection as well. Now I want to grow this selection. So let's go up under Select and go to Modify and choose Expand. Let's expand it by 20 pixels and then click OK. So now I have a fairly large area selected, and now I'll create another duplicate of layer 0 by clicking on it and dragging it to the new layer button. And instead of creating a mask, this time I want to just fill in this area. So let's go up under the edit command and choose fill. And you want to make sure your layer 0 copy is selected in the layers panel. And here in my contents, we want to make sure it's content aware fill. So make sure it says content aware next to contents and then click OK. And it's going to take a second, but as you can see, it's done a pretty good job of actually filling in this background. If I press Command D or Control D on Windows, notice it's filled it in pretty darn well. And now all I have to do is sort of fix this little bit of a mess down here at the bottom. So I'm going to press Command minus or Control minus on Windows to zoom out. And I'll just go ahead and draw a rectangular marquee around this whole area like so. And then we can do the same command, edit, fill, make sure content aware is selected and click OK. And then it'll fill it in. And I just have this one little area left. So I'm going to click outside the rectangle to deselect. And I'll draw a rectangle or a square just over this one little area and go up under edit, fill, and we can choose content aware and click OK. If I press Command D or Control D on Windows to deselect, this looks pretty good. Let's turn the years layer back on, and that's actually looking pretty good. But notice I've got this little white line that's popped up here. Well, if we turn on our calendar year, you can see that that fills in beautifully. So if we turn on our snow year, now we have each individual layer as a separate layer. So now I could go ahead and animate the calendar year white area and the snow year dark area up here. So let's just go ahead and label our last layers here. I'll turn this off and on. And here for this one, let's go ahead and rename this blank background. And layer 0, I can just turn the visibility off and I'll rename that original. Okay, now all we need to do is save this so I know it's ready for import into After Effects. I can go up under File and choose Save As. Now I want you to navigate in your exercise files to the Assets folder. In there you'll see a 04 PSD folder. Go ahead and choose that, and you may already see this file saved in here. I'm going to go ahead and save over the old file. You can either save over it or not. It's entirely up to you. But the name, I'll name it 01_03_cutting_flat_AE.psd. This way I know this is the file that's getting imported into my After Effects project. I want to save it as a Photoshop document with layers, and we can go ahead and embed the color profile. So once I click Save, it'll ask me if I want to replace. I'll say yes. And now we've successfully saved our cut up Photoshop document, and it's ready for animation inside of After Effects.